It'd help if I would actually release stuff on a regular basis, and I'd remember to actually do more recording. So you haven't really missed a whole lot. I did cut the bevels or grind the bevels in on the sword itself, and now what I'm doing is I'm just sanding out the imperfections and getting it ready for polish and etching. It's already been heat treated. Again, I didn't record that. My apologies. I'll get to show a little bit of that when we start doing the guard and the pommel, because I find that the edge is a little bit more pronounced or robust when you heat treat something, even if you don't actually need it to be that way, like the guard or the pommel itself. So right now what I'm working on is the guard. I was going to try to make it on a Damascus or some kind of canister Damascus. That didn't work out. Either ran out of material, or material I didn't want to use didn't turn out the way I thought. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get a piece of mono steel. This is a piece of spring steel, maybe 5160 or something similar. A friend gave to me some time ago. What I've done is I have squared it up so it is 1/2 inch wide and about, an inch wide and about a 1/2 inch thick. On the backs I drilled the holes. This is where the tang of the sword will actually go into it, and I drilled the holes for those, filed them out so that they are a single line, and got the tang started. I went in the back as well before I did that, and actually drilled some deep holes. This is something I haven't seen anybody do, but I think it's a good idea. It kind of reduces the amount of time necessary to file work. So I drill a bigger hole on the back, and all the way down, probably about 2/3, maybe 3/4 of the way down to where the top of the guard is going to be. And again, that just makes the filing a lot easier. That said, this is still steel, and it still is hard and pain in the neck to do anything with. So I have a rotary tool that I'm going to utilize. I've got a diamond tip on the end of it, and I'm going to slowly hog out what material I can. So this filing part, or well, actually the tooling part that we're doing here to fit the guard to the tang, is definitely one of the more tedious parts, because you do a little bit and then you test to see how the fit of the tang is. You do a little bit and test to see how the tang is. You don't want to make it too big, or else it'll start looking sloppy, but you don't want it to be too small, because then, well, it won't work at all. So and of course, sometimes, and in this particular case, it's somewhere thicker on one side it isn't, so it goes in great here, but not the other way. And we're getting close, so I'll keep working on it. I got to a point where hogging material out of the guard seemed like it was getting to be too excessive. Like I didn't quite, or couldn't quite feel exactly what I was doing, where I was going wrong. So I decided I'd put the sword actually in the vise. This is a diamond coated, well, I don't know, little piece of sandpaper basically. Excuse me, and work some of these spots out that were still left over from the original forging or from the original grinding, and seeing if I couldn't take some of those, knock some of those corners off. And I did that on this side, and it really seemed to make a big difference. So I'm going to flip it over and do the other side, and hopefully we'll be done soon. I switched out the end for this little stone circle rotary bit, and I busted the corners down on the blade just a little bit. If I can get it out and show you, I will. Right in this vicinity right here, and it went a lot faster, and the guard fits on perfectly, and we are ready to start working or shaping the guard now, and then we can move on to the handle. So stick with it. I've got the basic shape of the guard that I want already on there. The tang hole's all set to go, like I had mentioned earlier. It's a new day. I'm going to go ahead and use this 50 grit, and I got a very level platen, so we're going to get it done. Okay, so we finally got the shape that we're looking for. It's still just rough sanded, so really got a little bit of work to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch this out for a 120 belt, so I can kind of finish up the bottom and then tweak these sides that kind of got some temper lines or whatever, got really hot, and we'll get this thing cleaned up so we can get it on the sword. One of the things I forgot to mention was that while I'm doing this, sometimes I don't get the proper light, and you can really tend to miss the lines that you're trying to get to on the piece. And that's why I have an overhead lamp. This is, well, it's not really part of it, but it's got a neat little magnet on the bottom of it that helps keep it in place. It's a Klein-made piece. I've had it for a long time, and it's come in very handy. What we've done is we have put the handle material into some cactus juice. This is it right here. Not paid sponsor. This is essentially a very thin resin that we will bake into the actual handle material, which is going to use olive wood for this project. And we'll bake it for twice the amount of time that we actually had it in, which was 2 hours, so it needs to bake for 4 hours. And then we should have some pretty hard material for our handle for our sword. What we're doing now is we're cutting some spacers. I'm going to put a piece of, I believe, 11 layer Damascus between the guard and the handle, and then there'll be another piece following that handle, and then the pommel itself. So I'm going to cut these out. I'm actually going to drill holes in there so I can put stabilizer pins. This is the first time I've ever done that. That way the whole handle will be one solid piece, and I don't have to worry about it coming apart or doing something I don't want it to do. So. I've already got the pins that I want to use on there, or cut and made. It's just steel. I was going to use brass, but I lost my brass, so we're going to use steel instead. No problem. So I got one here already set up, ready to go. And yes, they're oversized. And there we go. That's generally speaking how it will sit on the handle. So yeah, and I did make it, like I said, I did make it a little bit big, and I'm gonna go ahead and get that cleaned up now. Well, here's the handle, or well, it will be anyway. I got the last piece of wood on there clamped down. I've got the spacer actually all set up and the pommel started. This is the spacer, which I believe is like, it's exactly, actually it's for the same pieces as the first one, 11 layer Damascus that I made for another project. Here's a pommel, at least for now. I haven't decided if I want to round these edges or not. Here's hoping. Well, as you can kind of tell, the sword's pretty well done. Of course, all the footage that I had, apparently pressing the record button is important when you're recording video. Sorry about that. Everything came out pretty well. The sword actually looks really well. The pommel nut came out exactly how I wanted it. I did use a piece of wood to kind of, it was a little, looked more like a hat on the side than it actually did like a nut. And I used a piece of wood and I just knocked it kind of straight. Bad thing did happen though, as I was tightening it down, the olive wood started to separate a little bit in some of the places. The epoxy maybe didn't hold all the way. So I'm using this medium Super Teague super glue and kind of just getting into those spots where I thought it was just maybe separating or getting a little bit too loose, more loose than I would like. It's a pretty sturdy. You can't hear any rattling, which that's great. I'm really happy with that. Once the glue's dried up, I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of hand sanding just to get those spots cleaned up a little bit without making things hopefully worse. Here it is. The sheath came out pretty well. I went ahead and made a baldric for it, just because, well, that's just it.
But overall, I think everything came out pretty nice looking, and I'm sure that the person it is going to will be exceedingly happy. If you've stayed around this long, thanks for watching. We really do appreciate you spending the time to just view this and get it all the way to the end. If you haven't already done so, please hit the like, hit the subscribe, share it, and yeah, so we'll see you in the next one.